Welcome back to Rocky Mountain Victim Law Center's series on Title IX. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about what might be going on for a survivor who is going through the Title IX process and some of the privacy things to keep in mind. When there is an incident that brings up Title IX, there's often a lot of other things going on. There may be a criminal investigation for the survivor, the accused, and it could involve the behavior of both the survivor and the accused. There could be disciplinary actions going on within the school district for the behavior of either one or both parties. Academics tend to be impacted, as they would be for all of us going through a lot of stress. Social life can get really hard, especially within your peer groups. There's always an element of safety and wondering and feeling like school is or is not a safe space. And lastly, there's just general mental health and support that needs to go into place. All of these different systems have their own rules around privacy, what's shared, and with whom. It is really important to protect your privacy. For most victims, privacy is like oxygen. It is a pervasive, consistent need at every step of recovery. Within the context of the legal system, if a victim is without privacy, all other remedies are moot. It is incredibly important to know when you're talking to people who can give you privacy and who cannot. The first step for privacy is whether you get to decide who knows your information. The second step is that someone commits to confidentiality, and some of these different systems, criminal, academic, etc., can offer some level of confidentiality. But without asking, you won't know. And lastly is privilege, which means that the other person that you're talking to cannot share your information. In every step of Title IX and with every system that you encounter, it is really important to ask at the beginning, is this a person who can keep things private? Can they keep things confidential? Or can they keep things privileged? Going back to the idea that there are so many systems involved when a Title IX event happens in school, it's important to keep in mind that the criminal aspect has its own rules for sharing information. Any federal case or the Office of Civil Rights has their own rules for sharing information. The Colorado Juvenile Code or Children's Code has its own rules for sharing information between schools, law enforcement, and other professionals. And lastly, if there's any civil actions through a protection order or a lawsuit, they will have information sharing rules as well. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about FERPA, which dictates when school records can be shared, because sometimes it's used to protect survivors, and sometimes it's used to keep information away from survivors. FERPA defines education records as documents which contain information related directly to a student and are maintained by an educational agency or institution or by a person acting for such agency or institution. Some district courts have held that student witness statements are not governed by FERPA. Incident reports relating to non-education matters are not educational records because although they may contain names and other personally identifiable information, such as records related in no way whatsoever to the type of records which FERPA expressly protects, for example, records relating to individual student academic performance, financial aid, or scholastic probation, which are kept in individual student files. The limitations on disclosure imposed by FERPA do not apply to production of documentation relating to student complaints of sexual harassment against a particular employee. As the Title IX process begins and one experiences all these different systems that can come into play, it is very important to understand who you're talking to, what kind of privacy they can offer you, and if they use rules like FERPA to either keep you from information or share your information, that you understand how those things work. Stay tuned for more information from Rocky Mountain Victim Law Center about Title IX.